By a show of hands, how many of you in here have ever heard of the saying, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach? Oh, I can see a lot of men's hands in here. Well, in my case, it should have been, the way to a man's heart is through the stomach aches I cause. Why, you may ask? Because I, ladies and gentlemen, am a horrible cook. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. Today, I am going to whip up for you some of my cooking disasters. So I warn you, please brace yourself, because at any point, if any of my stories make you feel a little queasy, I am always prepared with enough Pepto-Bismol. So please share. Are you ready? Yes. Thank you. Now I want to introduce to you my cooking disaster number 1. The Uncle Ben's rice. My first attempt in cooking a meal for any human being was only about 5 years ago on Valentine's Day. All throughout my childhood, I have observed my dear mom throwing things into a pot and calling it a meal. So, I was going to attempt to do the same and call it rice and chicken. Or is that chicken and rice? Okay, the first step, I got my Uncle Ben's rice, threw it into the saucepan, added a little salt, a little water. Okay, I know that the box says it cooks in 10 minutes, but I happen to have gotten just a little distracted trying on some of the cute outfits for that evening. So, needless to say, 30 minutes later, my rice was ruined, and I had less than 1 hour to figure out what I was going to do. So, I had to think on my high heels, and I did what any woman in my situation would do. I went to the nearest Pollo Tropical, picked up some chicken and rice, and was going to pass it off as my own. I got rid of all the evidence. Shh. He didn't even know the difference. And from that day forward, I asked myself, Self, why do you need to know how to cook when all you have to do is order food and take the credit for it? Are you hungry for more? Yes. Okay, because I have more. Now I want to introduce to you my baking disaster that I like to call the Betty Crocker Super Moist Double Chocolate Fudge Cake story. You see, after my Uncle Ben's rice situation, I wasn't feeling in the mood to make a meal for anyone. But I figured I could try something a little simpler. So, I was going to attempt to bake a chocolate cake for my significant other's birthday. Why are y'all looking at me like that? I know what you're thinking. How hard can it be, Jessica? All you have to do is follow steps 1, 2, and 3, right? Well, I don't think you understand. This was going to be a big project for me after getting over the Uncle Ben's emotional trauma. So, a girl like me had to get in the right type of mood. And I'd like to introduce to you my recipe for stress, my bottle of red wine. So now let the baking party begin. I got all my utensils, started mixing in my ingredients, and I started to feel really good. I mean, I felt like I could do this all the time. All right, who am I fooling? By then, the wine had kicked in just a little, but I continued to mix, and off to the oven, my chocolate cake went. I took my bottle of wine, relaxed for a while, watched some Desperate Housewife reruns, and then I remembered I forgot to set the timer. I ran to the kitchen, opened the oven, only to discover a black, burnt Betty Crocker mess. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I, Jessica, oops, had done it again. Do any of you want some Pepto-Bismol at this point? Well, in that case, I want introduce to you a little taste of something sweeter that I like to call my recipe for love. Not too long ago, me and my dear boyfriend Drew moved in together. And I knew that my days of ordering food and taking the credit or burning things was over. And then one night, my worst nightmare came true. Drew was not feeling so well. And he had asked if I could make for him, what do you call that? A home-cooked meal. I started to panic. I didn't know what to do. But I had to think fast. So I went to Publix and picked up the only thing I knew that I could pass as a home-cooked meal. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you Hamburger Helper to my restaurant. After all, the commercial does say it makes a great meal. So I rushed back home, followed all the instructions, and to my surprise, it looked something like the picture. But Drew even suggested that we enjoy our meal outside and watch the sunset. And then not too long ago, that man made a shocking confession to me. He told me that Hamburger Helper night, he very much had planned to eat dinner outside so that he can have an easy way to toss his food. You would think that made me upset or angry, but it did quite the opposite. Drew and I have an understanding in our relationship that I will not cook. And if I ever attempt to do so, he will be there right by my side, watching very closely over me. Drew and I have an understanding that in our relationship, our recipe for love is the way to this man's heart is for me to just stay out of the kitchen.